Hi Ronies, this is your pal Roni K95 here. Today we're gonna be doing a Halloween review because we're gonna be reviewing Ed, and Eddy's Boo Haw Haw, the Halloween special. Double D is organizing on the school steps when Eddy bursts out through the doors complaining about after-school detention and he got on Halloween, though Double D points out that he processed cheese in a teacher's desk. Eddy quickly shakes this off, however, and leaves. It's Double D off to Ed's place, promising that he has something that makes the coolest Halloween ever. When they got there, they find Ed inside, surrounded by many boxes of VHS tapes. Each tape is of a horror movie, and it seems that Ed has pretty much spent the whole month in his room watching horror movies, whereas he didn't really seem to pay any attention to the world. He's becoming a zombie to his TV. Ed has solution. However, unplug the TV and Ed will wake up. He proceeds to do so. Speaking of which, the clip from the movie Nightmare on Elm Street is seen through static through the TV. What you see on what Ed is watching too many horror movies on VHS. This makes me feel like I want to buy a lot of horror movies on VHS, especially from the 70s and 80s. Once the TV shuts off, Ed's eyes fizzle static soon enough, though they return to normal, and he looks around his room fully lucid. He loudly declares that it's Halloween, the night when ghosts and goblins come out to play. Eddy agrees with his friend's assessment, and then goes on to say something that he'll make a night even better. A map his brother gave him that leads to the neighborhood where they give out buckets of candy. The one and only Spookyville. You know, Spookyville. With the E, I guess. Double D is uncertain about the veracity of this map, asks to examine it, and after looking it over declares that despite the honorable penmanship, it's almost certainly a fraud. Like a certain map, Ed is made unhappy by this announcement, and Eddy thinks his unhappiness, for all it's worth, forcing Ed to give in against his better judgment to keep from ruining Ed's Halloween. When the night finally comes, the Eds are costumed. Eddy is costumed up. Eddy is going as a zombie version of Elvis Presley. Ed is wearing the costume of Lothar, a Viking who somehow rules Montezuma, and Double D is dressed as the bubonic plague. After some minor bickering, Ed's head out to start the search for Spookyville. Ed is distracted whenever he hears strange voices, and he creeps over. In the alley, the voices were coming from to listen in. Inside the alley are the Cankers having a cookout. Ed's eyes fizzle static, and he sees something entirely different. 3 witches tending a cauldron. As he looks on horrified, the witches cast a spell on the night, cursing their foes to suffer from many enemies that shall rise from the underworld and get in their way. As Ed runs away terrified, and the Cankers merely look at each other, wondering what the ruckus they heard was, reminding them that the roasted marshmallows make her fart. Meanwhile, Double D is squandering the map to find out the first clue as near as he discerns as the dented stop sign, and suddenly Ed stops up and grabs them, warning about the curse. Eddy jokes gingly, saying that it falls on to Ed to protect them, and Lothar agrees. Double D and Eddy are starting to refocusing on the map when Ed shoves them into a shed and warns them of something evil. The evil thing in question is Jimmy, who is dressed as an alien costume. This isn't what Ed sees, however. Ed instead hallucinates that Jimmy is an actual alien. After shouting that at Jimmy that Earth isn't his salad bar, Ed runs up and slams a stop sign on him, repeatedly beating Jimmy into the sidewalk. Eddy laughs off at this show of comedic violence while Double D looks on horrified. Ed heads over to his friends and Eddy congratulates him on his protection behind them. Sarah comes over to downed friend and learns that Ed inflicted violence on him. Eddy is scared and Ed has broken the rules of so-called Halloween ethique. He doesn't have time to worry about this, however. Sarah arrives angrily and wants to know what they meant by hurting Jimmy. Once again, Ed hallucinates and he sees Sarah as a vampiress who must be vanquished. After a short tussle, Lothar emerges victorious, sparing Sarah in the ground. Eddy had found a dented stop sign in the form of Ed used on Jimmy, leads them on, and Double D growing more concerned about the sanity of his friend. While trying to catch up with his friends, however, Ed runs into a Medusa. The Medusa is possibly the costume of the actual person. It's pulling along gleefully. Trick or treat together. Eddy notices and asks Ed asks what Double D is doing trick or treating with Naz. Ed as actual visual hallucinates and attacks it. Actually seeing Naz as Medusa. After a brief battle, Lothar emerges victorious once again, having encased Medusa in cement as a sort of poetic justice. And then the Eds went into the abandoned hearse, and Kevin throws eggs at Double D and Eddy. Ed hallucinates because he sees Kevin as the headless horseman from the cirrhosis of the Liverpool, and Ed throws the pump defeated the headless horse as Lothar defeats this headless horseman. And then back in reality, Kevin's bike was broken and Ed won for victory. And then they meet after the abandoned hearse one. They met the Great Spider, which is basically Johnny in a costume, and Ed gives Jimmy's Halloween candy to Johnny, and then they went out of nowhere. So speaking of which, because Eddy found something that was just a clue, and Ed said to Eddy, Lothar need no stinking map, and Eddy said, yeah, because Lothar needs a stinking brain. And then, yeah, that's what he did. When they find, and then Ed hallucinates, hits Rolf in the eyes with a spatula, blinding him. Then he have his friends run around by the bridge, and then they run into Plank, which Ed hallucinates as Frankenplank. And Ed grabs a tree and he beats up Frankenplank like, take this and this. The big one. And he goes, and the little tree during his hallucination goes, and that. And Eddy's like, Ed this, Ed that. Why are you supposed to marry a guy? I'm going to Spookyville. Ed's like, I'm already taken, Eddy. And then Double D says, now be a good fellow and go to Johnny, because they're going to they're on their way to Spookyville. Eddy can't read the map, so he counts from 1 to 10, and that Eddy's in Spookyville, but it's basically Halloween decorations in the cul-de-sac. Eddy said it's time for trick-or-treating, and Ed is like, Ed heard something strange. And was still hallucinating, since that the monsters they defeated before have all banded together as Ed runs off, saying, "Dig a hole." Eddy, meanwhile, marches up into the house, and he sees it rings the doorbell, then he rings again, like 3 times. There's no reply. Eddy is confirmed and suspicious, and Double D tells Eddy that the minor hints didn't get through. Double D finds out, states that the map leads them back in the complete circle, that they're back in the cul-de-sac. Before Eddy can consider the implications of this, Ed runs up and grabs his friend. The trio sees the kids angry and convincing and advancing on them, seeking revenge of their indignities visited upon theirs. In Johnny's case, Plank's body, Johnny said to Ed, like, "Plank's pressing charges, you bully." Ooh, and he's like, "Who's coughing up to fix my bike?" That would be basically Kevin. And then Ed hallucinates, sees the monsters again, saying, "Your mother wears army boots," and he uses the pole to knock them down. Ed quickly runs into a backyard and throws his friends down in a hole, and he leaps in there, pulls a fence over them, hanging by his costume and declaring that Lothar is pooped. Ed sits down in a chair made of dirt to relax. Eddy starts to angrily complain about not getting to trick-or-treat, but bigger problems arise when the fence is lifted off the shelter and tossed away by the kids who descend upon him. Eddy calls for Lothar to help him once more, to only hear it from that there were no such thing as monsters, as the curse has been defeated. The kids beat up Double D and Eddy, and Ed was reading the newspaper and glance once. He was hallucinating again, but he does not see violence and horror. Instead, he sees his friend, and is happily rolling around as flowers and rain down upon them with a chuckle as he returns to his newspaper and cheered by the sweetness of Halloween. And that's how you end the Ed and Eddy Halloween special, where you see the kids of the cul-de-sac beat up Double D and Eddy. So that's going to be it for my review on Ed and Eddy's Haw Haw Halloween special. Thanks for watching. So instead of using garlic, Ed says a steak will defeat you, which is a reference to garlic, because garlic kills vampires. And Danny Antonucci revealed through the Best Day Editor Marathon that this episode was his favorite to make, because Ed and Eddy's big Haw Haw Halloween special was the creator Danny Antonucci's favorite to make. And Lothar is later seen in Ed and Eddy's Big Picture Show when Ed was zapped with electric gum by Eddy. And there's horror movies Ed has on VHS: The Headless Horseman, Curse of the Witches, and Medusa's Hair Salon on... Yes. Speaking of which, Ed's line, "Lothar no need no stinkin' map," it's right out of the 1948 film The Treasure of Sierra Madre. We don't need no stinkin' badges. Yep. The references. Funny little world we all have in, isn't it? Because, and this is after the Christmas and Valentine special, Ed and Eddy, which I'm going to review the Christmas one on December, and in 2019 I'll review it on Valentine's. Subscribe for content on my anime plan, link in the description down below. You can share this video on your Twitter, you can share this video on your Facebook with your friends on Facebook, even if you have Facebook. Click on the notifications bar. Subscribe to RoninK95. That's it. So like, subscribe, favorite, comment, read notifications. Click on the notifications bar. After clicking the notifications bar, share this video on both your Facebook or Twitter, and that's it. So get ready for Halloween, because I know it's October. This is RoninK95. I hope you enjoyed this review of Ed and Eddy's Haw Haw. I hope you like it. Hope to see you soon. Sayonara, and be prepared for Halloween.